Two men. Two philosophies. Two choices. One decision. You decide.
All right, well, it is an honor to be here tonight. My name is Kent Hovind. I was a high school science teacher for 15 years, and now for about 14 years I've been doing seminars on creation, evolution, and dinosaurs. I don't like sneaking up on anybody, so I'll tell you right now what I believe. I believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. I believe the evolution theory, as it's being presented in our universities, is one of the dumbest ideas in the history of humanity, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Evolution is not science. That's my contention. Now, before we get too far into this, we need to define a couple of terms, I guess. I have nothing against science. I taught science for years. I like the subject of science. But there is some poison mixed in with our science books. And that's all I'm concerned about. There are some lies that are used over and over and over and over to promote this evolution theory. Science is things that we can observe and study and test and demonstrate. Nobody's ever observed any evolution. Nobody's ever seen a dog produce a non-dog. Now, if you want to believe it happened, that's perfectly fine, but that now becomes part of your religion. That is not part of science. Science is things we know by observation, testing, and demonstration. Now, Florida has a law that requires textbooks to be accurate. All instructional material shall be accurate. Texas has a law that says instructional materials shall be factual, and theories shall be clearly distinguished from facts. Wisconsin has a law that says textbooks shall be accurate. Alabama has a code that says textbooks shall be adequate and current. I think these are all very reasonable laws, by the way. California has a law that says textbooks shall be factually accurate and reflect current and confirmed research. My contention is there is no current and confirmed research that supports the evolution theory. Evolution is not part of science, which is what this debate is about. This textbook says evolution is a fact. It says the evidence to support evolution is based on fossils, traces of evolutionary history in existing organisms, continental drift, direct observations of change, and the experimental production of new species. Well, first place, we'll go through each of these later on, but there's no way any fossil could possibly count as evidence for evolution. I mean, if you were in a court of law and you brought a bone you found in the dirt into the judge and said, "Judge, this bone is the ancestor of everybody today," well, they'd laugh at you. You can't prove that bone had any kids. You sure can't prove it had different kids. And why on earth would you think a bone you found in the dirt can do something animals today cannot do, which is produce something other than their kind? So fossils absolutely cannot possibly count as evidence for evolution because it is impossible to demonstrate that they had any kids that lived. You might believe that they're ancestral, but that's now not part of science. Science is what we can observe and test and study and demonstrate. Evolution is the other word that needs to be defined. Evolution has at least 6 different levels. Now, I read some of the stuff that Dr. Weisenberger wrote in some letters to the editor in the past, and this has happened. I've had 75 debates now, and in the last 10 years especially, they've worked very hard to focus the definition of evolution on only changes within the species or between species. I think this is a little bit deceptive, as I'm going to share with you tonight. Actually, there are 6 essential levels that would all have to take place in order for evolution to be true. First, we'd have to have cosmic evolution. Somehow, you have to have the origin of time, space, and matter. Before the matter can get together and make life, there has to be the matter. So how did the matter get here? Where did the energy come from? Where did the laws of nature come from? Those are all essential steps that they are included in the textbooks as part of evolution theory, but during debates, it's very frequent for the debater to say, well, this is not really what evolution is about. Well, I'm sorry, it has to happen for evolution to even take place. So yes, it is what evolution is about. Secondly, you'd have to have chemical evolution. According to the Big Bang theory, the Big Bang produced hydrogen and maybe some helium. Well, then how on earth did we get all these other elements? You mean uranium evolved from hydrogen? We see lots of elements decay, break down. We don't see them go up without enormous energy input. And now you're back to the chicken and the egg problem. You have to have the stars already existing to produce the higher elements. So you really got a problem. Either stellar evolution or organic evolution or chemical evolution had to come first. But either way, you have a chicken and an egg problem. Thirdly, you have what I call stellar evolution, which is where the stars would have to evolve. Nobody's ever seen a star forming. One professor said, oh, we see a star forming right now in Crab Nebula. I said, no, you don't. You see a spot getting brighter. You're assuming it is a star forming. It could be the dust is clearing and there's a star behind it. The fact is, we have never observed a star forming. We see stars blow up all the time. It's called a nova or a supernova. And yet there's enough stars out there right now that everybody on Earth can personally own 2 trillion of them to yourself. Those are the ones we know about. We don't know about the ones that we don't know about. Fourthly, there would have to be what's called organic evolution. Somewhere, somehow, long ago and far away, life had to get started by non-living material. Now, the evolutionist is left with the very embarrassing position of having to believe in spontaneous generation, even though it was proven wrong several hundred years ago. All the experiments by Francisco Redi and Louis Pasteur and many others have said, look, life begets life. Life does not come from non-living material. One student was sitting in the audience one time, and his question for me during the question time was, Dr. Hovind, if scientists ever make life in the laboratory, what are you going to say then? I said, well, first of all, they are a long ways from coming to that. They can barely make a few amino acids, okay? Secondly, if a bunch of intelligent scientists do produce life in the laboratory, then I would say that that proves that it takes intelligence to make life, which is what I've been saying all along, okay? But the evolutionist really is left with, I think, the very embarrassing and totally anti-intellectual position of thinking that life came from something that was non-living long ago and far away. Why could it happen only once? 3.5 billion years ago. Why isn't it happening commonly, frequently? Fourthly, we have what's called organic evolution. That's where life gets started. Fifthly is macroevolution. That's where an animal changes from one kind to another. Nobody's ever seen this. The Bible says the animals bring forth after their kind, and so the definition of kind would be those that are able to bring forth. A dog and a wolf can mate and bring forth offspring. A dog and a banana cannot. So in some cases, it's very obvious what are the same kind. In other cases, it's not obvious what exactly was the original created kind. And I think that's a valuable field of research that's worth doing. What were the original kinds? Probably the horse and the zebra descended from a common ancestor. That doesn't mean the horse and the pine tree descended from a common ancestor. So macroevolution is where you change from one kind to another. Nobody's ever seen that. Lastly, we have what's sometimes called microevolution. I object to this term. I think it's confusing because it's not really evolution. It's just a variation of the same kind of animal. But if you want to call it microevolution, I'll buy that with the qualification that I object to that, because it's really just a variety within the same kind. The first 5 steps that would have to take place are actually totally religious. Now, the professors that promote evolution are always trying to focus the attention on microevolution, where there are millions of examples. I mean, I agree, this one happens. There's no debate. Variations happen. The question is, are they limited or unlimited? And I think the obvious observations for the last 6,000 years of human history tell us variations are limited. You might get a big dog or a little dog, but you get a dog every single time. No exceptions. According to the Big Bang Theory, though, the Big Bang teaches 18 to 20 billion years ago, there was a Big Bang where nothing exploded and produced everything. And 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down and formed a rocky crust. This is what the textbooks teach. Now, how some professors can say this is not part of evolutionary theory, I don't understand that, because it is part of evolutionary theory. It is an essential step. You have to get the Earth here before anything can evolve on the Earth. And so if they say the Earth cooled down and a rocky surface was created, and they say as the Earth formed, it was like the moon and the Earth's surface was hot and there were large pools of bubbling lava. But oceans formed as it rained on the rocks for millions of years. This is what's in typical textbooks all across the world as part of the process of life getting here. This textbook says, then millions of years of torrential rains created great oceans. Yes, boys and girls, swirling in the waters of the oceans is a bubbling broth of complex chemicals. Progress from a complex chemical soup to a living organism is very slow. Wow, I guess it is. It's totally stopped. It doesn't even happen. That's how slow it is. This is pure imagination. This is a fantasy, okay? If they want to believe that, that's perfectly fine. But I resent them using my tax dollars to cut down a perfectly good tree and print that and sell it to the kids and teach it as if it's